In 2015, our next speaker sold his first software company, then wrote a book about it. You purchased over 30,000 copies, making it an instant Wall Street Journal bestseller. Then, he collected data points from 3,000 B2B software CEOs through his podcast. He went on to raise a $145 million fund to do debt deals with software founders who wanted to keep equity. He's financed 403 software founders, totaling $150 million. In 2024, he's averaging 3 to 4 new deals per week. He's a Wall Street Journal best-selling author, an exited software founder, and the CEO and Chief Investment Officer of Founderpath. Please put your hands together and welcome to the stage, Nathan Latka.
Look at this group. Look at this group. We've got the best weather I think we've ever had for SaaStock. The sun was shining. There's not too much mist. I'm excited to be with you guys today. We're going to have a great 29 minutes together because we're going to focus right here in Europe. Who are some of the top software companies? How are they adding a lot of revenue very, very quickly? And what are some nuggets that you guys can take to test out in your own companies? So that'll be our plan for the next couple of minutes. Now, before I jump too far into the slide deck, I want to make sure that the clicker's not working, so I'll wait for someone to run something up for me. I want to make sure that we all get the right mental model on how to think about these growth tactics you're about to see. Now, when I've done all these interviews with SaaS CEOs on the podcast, I listen carefully to, hey, what grew the fastest? What tactics worked? Right? What tactics work? There we go. And so these are some of the founders that I've interviewed on the show, ranging from Wade at Zephr in the center top to Henry Schuck at ZoomInfo in the center bottom, one per day since 2015. So I can't take much credit for what you're about to see. I just pride myself on trying to curate, package, and deliver. Now, how to think about these growth tactics is this map. What I do is during these interviews, you see the same growth tactics from the fastest growing companies come up over and over again. So much so that I would say there are only 33 ways to grow your software business, and these are those ways. Right? These are those ways. Now, right now, they look like they're sort of floating on the screen. So let's get a mental model together before we jump into the content. When we think about growth, there's a lot of different growth channels we can use. So on the left, we're going to put fast ideas, things that work quickly. On the right, these things take a longer time to pay back. And then we want to look at the top, things that are cheap to test. And the bottom, the things that are more expensive to test. And now we can plot all of these growth tactics. Let's then assign a color to each bubble, which represents a full-time employee at your company. Right? Purple is whoever's leading your influencer marketing. Orange is probably your content team. Yellow is your paid marketing. And so this is a good way to conceptualize what you're about to learn over the next 26 minutes and 30 seconds. What's very important, though, as you learn here at SaaStock, is it's not just about collecting growth tactics. You have to also sequence them the right way. Just because one tactic worked for somebody else doesn't mean it's going to work for you. You have to contextualize and take what matters most to you. So let's think about how to move through this graph. What quadrant, if you're launching your business, should you start in? Upper left, upper right, one of the others? Where should we start? If you're under $1 million, cash is king. You need stuff that is quick and cheap, works quickly and is cheap. And only after you break $1 million revenue should you move to the upper right. All right, and this is where you can start experimenting on things that are still cheap, but a longer time horizon to pay off. You have more time because you have your post-revenue at this point. Only after $3 million of revenue should you start even considering the more expensive options that are below this halfway line, right, in the bottom left quadrant. And only after you're at 4, 5, 6 million of revenue should you be spending on things that are expensive and slow to pay back, which is the bottom right. Okay, just shake your heads up and down. Yes, are you guys, the model work? Are we in the right spot to get the rest of the content? Okay, all right, good. So let's jump in. This is our index for the next 25 minutes. These are the 9 case studies we're going to jump into. We're going to focus first on 1 to 10 million, then 10 million plus, and then a little tactic on founder brand and founder marketing. Now, out of curiosity, raise your hands high if you own at least 5% equity in a software company. Raise it high. High, real quick, high, okay. So what does everybody else do? What does everybody else do? All right, we got a good mix. Let's jump into 1 to 10 first. And what's nice about all these content, all the pieces of content here, you'll pick up a trend. I'm not going to tell you the trend, but I want you to, when we see the clips, to try and pick up on what the trend is. Let's start with Zephr, right? Zephr. Now, Zephr, when they launched, think of them, this is a SaaS that media brands use to do their paywalls, the $5 a month, the $10 a month on the New York Times. Right? They grew their business, James and his co-founder, and eventually sold for $50 million to Zephr. Now, James, are you in the room anywhere? Is he? Where is he? Where is he? Stand up, James, stand up. Give this guy a round of applause, round of applause. This is great. So, all the stuff James tells me privately when we're drinking, I can't share. But what I did instead is I went and looked and I said, let me go actually try and unwind what they did in the early days. And so I had to go to his co-founder, Chris. Here's what Chris said about how they launched the business.
The heritage of the company comes from building paywalls, which James, the founder, and I did for a number of publishers in the UK and around the world. We found that they tended to use software which was a little bit clunky, hard to install, and required lots of professional services.
So what I want to pull out there is James and Chris early on, it was heavy. Let me build the custom paywall for you, solve the problem, and then write code to do it over and over and over again. James, do you remember these early days where you're building the paywalls manually before you had the code? Very stressful, right? Very stressful. But again, they got it done. Great success story, $50 million exit. The point I want to make in this case study, I'm going to give you a little quiz here. Do you guys recognize any of these agencies? Anybody recognize these agencies? They all turned into massive software companies. I'm not a guy that likes to sell cheat codes or silver bullets, but if I was going to tell you one thing that would increase your chances the most of having a successful software company, it'd be launch professional services or launch an agency. There's no better way to make some cash flow and learn about your customers quickly, right? So again, that's the ultimate hack, I think, to building a great SaaS company. Let's get into case study number 2. We know Peakon, right? Incredible story. Here's the revenue growth, right? 0 to 1 million, 2 million by 2016, 2017, 2018. And the question is, how did they get those customers as they scaled through that revenue graph? Let's zoom in a little bit here and go back to 2015. And let's listen to Phil here as he talks about how they got those first customers.
Give you one anecdote. We sent 250 cold emails, not really knowing what we were doing, to companies in Berlin. And one person replied to that mail shot, which was happened to be the CFO of Delivery Hero, Emmanuel. And then, of course, we said, oh yeah, we're actually in Berlin tomorrow. Immediately bought plane tickets, jumped on an aircraft and went and had the opportunity to pitch their management team. We came away from that meeting not only with a contract for them to use Peakon in a very, very early state, but then Nicholas called me and said, well, I would like to invest in the business as well. And they became our most profitable client.
So how many of you guys are willing to buy a plane ticket if on every reply cold email you get, right? There's a lot of people cold emailing these days. There are very few that do this kind of hustle after the reply comes in. And this is why I think a lot of people complain cold email doesn't work. It's because most of us are pretty lazy once we get to the reply. That's an example of going all in, right? And so that's a good predictor, obviously, of what we saw happen with Peakon as it continued to scale. Now, I'm gonna let you guys study his P&L here for a second. I do wanna call out, because people go, Nathan, how do you get this data? Where is this from? It's a nice thing doing business in Europe. You can actually pay for these P&Ls and balance sheets from the government, from the public filings. So I want you guys to zoom in on this. Now, this is not USD, okay? This is Danish krona, right? But as you look in 2023 where they scaled, you can get a sense here, net profit or loss for the year, you don't need to know what currency that is. You see it's positive, right? They control their destiny in 2023 when they're making money, right? Profitable down there on net profit loss for the year. And ultimately, that means they had all the optionality in the world, which means they could drive this process however they wanted. They didn't have to sell. They didn't have to wait to a buyer to squeeze them because the buyer knew they were running out of money. They had all the leverage, got a great deal done on just $68 million raised. So really a great story for everyone there at Peakon. Also early as SaaStock attendee and speaker back in 2017, 2018. Let's wrap up here. Case studies in terms of the first section, getting to $10 million with Calendly, which we all know. Now, if you've been a diehard at SaaStock, I'm curious how many of you guys were here in 2017, but there's an absolute gem we're gonna get, which is Tope explaining how he went in 2013 to 2018, the first 8 million. I want you to listen right on this stage a couple years ago, what Tope had to say about hitting this ARR.
2014 is when we started charging for the product. Fast forward to today, we just crossed the $7 million mark. We're really excited about any advertising, right, without an outbound sales team, and one of the things I liked about the Calendly idea and the product and the business is this inherent virality with the product, right? So you cannot use the product in a vacuum. Anytime you invite somebody to schedule a meeting with you, you end up introducing Calendly to them, and then the cycle kind of starts and it kind of continues from there. So that.
Now, we don't all have inherent virality built into our products, but the general thing you should be thinking is there's some way in our onboarding channel we can turn one user into two. Most of you guys are probably doing something like invite the second person on your team or the third person on your team. If you're lucky and you have a document signing tool or a calendar tool which requires two people, you have inherent virality built in. But the idea here is to use that virality to build top of funnel and then really play with the conversion rates on those early days in terms of what's the right price point, even down to people who are asking, hey, what are we willing to pay to remove the Calendly branding? And if you go watch this full episode on YouTube on the SaaStock channel, you'll hear Tope talk more about that over the 30-minute interview. Really, really good strategy there. And this is how we thought about, again, what's important about this is we all think about Calendly. Today we go, oh, this is not useful information because they're big and huge and they're different. No, this is how Tope was thinking at your stage right now. This is what he was thinking. That was him nervously speaking on stage, right? That was him. And this is how they were thinking about it. The lesson I want to point out here is if you are running a PLG motion, it's not a bad thing to go study B2C companies that are really good at pleasing individual consumers, because that's effectively what you're doing with PLG. You're pleasing the individual like Calendly did, bottoms up, and before you know it, the companies are buying massive plans. So again, a lot of really great lessons there with Tope. Here's the summary of section 1. I won't read it, but I'll let you scan it here for 5 seconds. We've got 17 minutes left together. Let's jump into section 2. We're going to talk about going and breaking 10 million bucks of revenue, learning from Hotjar, Phorest, and Glofox. Also SaaStock, all of them actually, SaaStock alumni. So let's start with Hotjar. Here's the revenue growth. Again, completely bootstrapped, pretty much bootstrapped. All right, great story. And let's go back and look how David launched the business. Now guys, if you're pre-revenue today, this is where Hotjar was pre-revenue. So you can really get into their brain, right? What did their initial page look like? Maybe a bunch of you guys are about to launch this exact same page, but again, request free access. This was 2015. They built it by 2017. This is what it looked like, right? So all-in-one analytics, try for free. Again, PLG motion, bottoms up, no credit card trial, right? Key takeaway there. This ultimately helped them grow to a user base of 200,000 folks on Hotjar before they got really aggressive with monetization. And one of the ways they drove that inbound motion is through this SEO playbook. Now, this is a screenshot out of their Ahrefs account, which you guys should definitely go spend time with Ahrefs at their sponsor booth after this. But you can see they really narrowed in on these playbooks, right? Net Promoter Score specifically, that keyword drives them 19,000 organic clicks per month, even today. Like, even today. So the purpose of me showing you this is, again, if you're going to go play the SEO game, I would very much encourage you, go deep, not wide, and try and own those terms that will result in 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 clicks per month, and then do the subsections, how to calculate survey questions, etc. Let's dive into Alex's interview with David a little bit here as they talked about breaking 27,000 customers and 25 million bucks of revenue. This is right before Content Square bought the business.
So it's 100% self-serve. It is evolving. It's changing. We're becoming more smart about that, especially as now we have over 27,000 customers. We start to understand a little bit more. Where do we have better product market fit, right? Who are the ones that are using our product more? So for example, in the beginning, we said, okay, what should we do? This was a long time ago. Should we have a sales team and success team or have one? And we decided to do one success team that would do both sales and success. But what happened is we realized 80% of the work was actually sales. So we never got to do success.
It's really tricky when you have a freemium motion to figure out what touch you should put on these accounts, because most folks will overhire. And you put AEs and SDRs on these accounts that are paying $200 a month. That's not enough for them to hit the quota, do enough demos, and you still make that 5-to-1 margin in terms of on-target earnings, right, relative to quota. Right, so they struggled with this a bit, and you just heard how David sort of pivoted and adjusted. Ultimately, though, we don't have the rest of the story because they ended up selling the business. Now, he also had full control. Here's his profit and loss. Right, this is in euro. Right, so you can take a look at the bottom line there in 2020 of Hotjar. This is what it looks like if you're bootstrapping or if you're very capital efficient. and you're generating and focused on profits. And what I like to say is valuation is temporary, but control is forever. And this is what control is forever looks like. He can do anything with the business, right? Anything with the business generating profits. Ultimately, he did, right? And Content Square, another incredible success story here in Europe, gobbled those guys up in 2023. So we'll see what happens next. Content Square on a tear. It wouldn't shock me to see them break 500 million bucks of AR next year as well, but that's another story. Now, we just talked about the power of freemium. Phorest tried freemium, another SaaStock alumni, salon software, right? Launched in 2004. Let's dive in here, and you saw they have a little blip there in 21 a little bit, but let's learn from Phorest here on how they did the trials, tried freemium, it didn't work, and what they pivoted to.
And real quick here, because we're out of time, growth rate. So if you're doing 600 or 650 right now, just pure play SaaS today, what were you doing on that, just SaaS, about a year ago?
That's up 53%, I think, year on year.
Oh, that's great. So call that would have been, what, 420 grand last year, about a year ago? That's healthy growth.
Yeah, 400, something I think we were doing monthly 400, yeah.
That's one.
We experimented with freemium, but it didn't work. We had a lot of free users and very little number of those converting to paid. So we moved to a paid only model for the last 5 years. And that's worked phenomenally well for us. It's better because the salons that sign up with us are serious about using the product and getting value from it.
Right now, how much are you going to pay to acquire a new $120 a month customer?
On sales and marketing?
Fully weighted.
Fully weighted, including onboarding costs and everything like that, we're $3,500.
Okay.
So pretty expensive, right? You guys do the math. 120 divided by 3,500, what's the number of months in terms of payback? Now, what you'll miss, though, in that is that's just the SaaS fee 150 a month. Phorest has a beautiful business model that I like to call SaaS Plus, and it's SaaS Plus GMV. They also make money from these customers, charging a percent of GMV that the salons make and charge through the Phorest software. If you're finding yourself building something that is SaaS Plus, this is one way to really build a moat around your business and drive up your valuation, drive up profits, drive up you defending your business, SaaS Plus. So SaaS Plus hardware, SaaS Plus professional services, which drives up your net dollar retention if you they pay you to set them up. SaaS Plus GMV, SaaS Plus Marketplace. These are all examples of SaaS Plus that we saw there. Again, here's his 2021, right? His 2021 P&L in euros. Now, not as much leverage here. You can see 4 million burn there to grow 5 million bucks of ARR, but also not bad. You're spending under $1, technically, to add about $1.10 of new ARR. So that math works at scale, and they had just raised some money, right? That interview I did was right after they raised the 5 million on 60. They sold 8% of the business in 2018. And so that's why they were getting more aggressive on some of the paid ads and the longer payback periods, right? They've since pulled that back a little bit, which is why you see that revenue growth going again. And today they're really doubling down on a lot of ads, even billboards. I mean, these are real, this is not AI generated. This is real billboard. And not only that, they said, you know what, we're sick of paying Google for all these ads. We should own and operate our own distribution channel. Let's launch our own conference. Now, a lot of you guys talk about this, building your own media brands. You say, we can't launch our own conference. Let me just tell you, if a salon company can launch a conference, you can launch a conference, right? There's a conference for everybody, right? And they are crushing it, an owned and operated, profitable distribution channel. We've got 10 minutes left. This is the third case study in section 2, which is Glofox. This is gym software. Here's the revenue growth. All right, great revenue growth from Connor and team. And what you see here again is really harpoon style, not wide net SEO. The reason I'm harping a lot on this SEO is if you don't have a strong SEO game today, and you can measure that, log on to Ahrefs, and if your domain rating is not above a 70, you have a weak SEO game. That's the note to take and send to your SEO team. If your domain rating is under a 70, you have a weak SEO game. And the reason I say that is because we are not far away from everyone buying software by talking to Gemini and artificial intelligence and saying, what's the best gym software? And Gemini and these AI tools are gonna say, Phorest, right, or MindBody. And if you don't have a strong SEO base, you don't even have a shot at showing up in the AI generated results. Not even a shot. You won't even, by all means, you won't exist to the consumer who's looking for your tool. So make sure you've got that strong SEO base today to make sure you have leads to put into a beautiful onboarding flow like Glofox did. Again, this worked very nicely. You can see here, kind of upside down, right? I wouldn't recommend this, right? Kind of upside down, burning 10 million bucks to add 4 million of revenue. This is in euros, 2021 turnover, 8.3 million. right? But again, they were able to get their ducks in a row, not run out of cash, pull back on burn, and continue this incredible growth rate up to $20 million of revenue before this happened, right? Now, maybe if they weren't burning so much, he'd still be running the business. Maybe they didn't have to sell. Maybe they'd be at 40, 50 million bucks of revenue. But again, great exit for Connor, also presented right on this stage in 2018 at SaaStock, also right here, a Dublin-based company, 2022. Here's a summary of section 2. I'll let you guys review it here for 10 seconds, and we're going to wrap up. All right, on the count of 3, yes or no, have you learned at least one thing so far the first 20 minutes? 1, 2, 3? Okay, all right, that wasn't a lot of yeses. I'm gonna just end early. We'll get off the stage. Yes or no on the count of 3, you learned at least one thing so far? 1, 2, 3? Yes. There we go. Okay, more data, more data. You say yes, I give you more data. Founder brand, founder story. I'm gonna show you my own revenue graph. This is the revenue for getlatka.com. This is my SaaS company that I launched on top of my podcast. So you pay for it and you get access to all my podcasts, but in a filterable way. It's like Crunchbase Lite is a good way to think about it. So here's the revenue growth, right? 0 to 150,000 bucks of monthly recurring revenue. And how did we get to this run rate with no team? It was a one-person company with an army of contractors. Well, it comes down to founder brand. And so the question I would ask you is, what if you could get 1,400 clicks every time you sent an email to your lead list? What if you could skip and text the PR people that run on the cable stations to get on cable whenever you wanted when news was breaking in your space? No PR team that you're paying 10 grand a month for. What if you could do that? What if you had that power, right? What if you could write a book about your industry, right, and sell 30,000 copies of it, make it a Wall Street Journal bestseller, beating out Brene Brown and Yako and Dave Ramsey and James Clear, #3 Wall Street Journal bestseller? What if you could do that? What if your brand had that power? What if you were so cocky and your ego was bigger than mine that you launched your own magazine with your last name on it and sold 2.5 million bucks worth of that magazine? What would that mean for your software business? If you were in the mailboxes, on the kitchen counters physically of your prospective customers, what would that mean? And lastly, what about that podcast you guys all launched a year ago and then forgot about? What if you stayed consistent and built it to 10 million downloads, right? What would that mean for your software brand? All of these things are possible, and you can see how they layered here to ultimately drive the growth of the SaaS business if you have a strong founder story. And what that means is, does your founder or founding team align with whatever the software is you're selling? Because when you tell the market that your story aligns with also what you're now trying to sell them, they believe that you understand their problem and they buy from you. And that's why I believe that founder market fit is way more important than product market fit. A founder can't possibly build a great product if they don't understand the problem. So what is that founder or founding story? Now, the best thing is this stays with you for life. I took all that influence and used it at 31 years old, which was not too long ago. Okay, don't look at me like that. It wasn't too long ago, right? It channeled it all into raising a fund, right? $150 million fund where we now do debt deals with software founders to help them keep their equity and keep control, right? Sort of on theme. We're putting out anywhere between $5 and $20 million per month right now doing deals like this, both factoring and term loans. Now, when I bring this kind of story and this kind of storyline about founder story to Europe, I always hear these sorts of things. Oh, my investors would hate if they saw me writing my own book, right? My team won't like it. They'll think I have a big ego, right? Or on social media, people are going to accuse me of not being focused. That is your #1 job as a founder, is to tell your story so people buy your product. If you can't tell that story, who is? Right? If you can't tell that story, who is? And so I believe, again, founder market fit is your fastest way to revenue there. I'm all in. I say, Alex at SaaStock, I just want to print off a 9-foot thing of myself and stick it in the middle. He says, I don't know what you're doing, but go ahead. And it works, okay? You can see it works. The booth is absolutely slammed. Put yourself in Times Square on NASDAQ, right? Lean in. Now, as you think about a larger perspective, this is my model for life outside of just software. So if you're a founder in the room or trying to build personal wealth, this is how I have thought about personal wealth since college, which is we all start hustling. Today, it's never been easier. List a task that you do on Fiverr or Upwork, do tasks one-off, and eventually you'll build a customer base, just like we were talking about agencies earlier. And then you stop trading time for money, right? And you build something once that you can sell forever. Now, most of us start with code. But when you record a podcast episode, that's building once and it lasts forever, selling forever. Media and code are equal weight in terms of importance. My first software company was Heyo that you see up there, and then Latka, now focused on Founderpath, a lot of software. But where most people miss out is they don't make these things feed each other. right? The media brand should be promoting the software and the free user trials should all be being promoted back into your media, and it should be a crazy loop. And after you build once and sell forever, you generate profits, then you use those profits personally and you start figuring out, where do I want to invest? In equity, debt, stock market, angel investing, whatever you want to do. Right? And so this is how I think about life, and specifically zero marginal cost products related to code and media. And I believe media will be more important in the future because with all these new GitHub, Copilot, et cetera, it's very easy to write code. Also, attention is a zero-sum game. Let's say there's 300 of you in the room right now. You guys only have 24 hours per day of attention to capture each. Maybe 18 actually after sleep. It's a zero-sum game. If I get your attention, that means Paddle is not getting it. Code, anyone can write code. It's not a zero-sum game. That's why I think media is more important. It's the more scarce resource in the future. Paddle gets it. Check out Paddle Studios. Check out their booth right outside, right? Pendo gets it. Right? They just announced 3 days ago on the left, they bought an Irish-based conference that actually has their conference right here 2 weeks ago, right? Industry Conf. It's a product marketing conference. They also bought Mind the Product many years ago and turned it into their own conference, Pandemonium. This is an example of owning your distribution channels. So Pendo gets it. This is the takeaway in terms of zero marginal cost. Build once, sell forever. These things are all equal. Most of you are only focused on code, but these things are all equal. Right? So don't underinvest in any of them, right? Now, this is the summary there of section 3, right? We talked about founder market fit, owning distribution channels, SaaS plus media, SaaS plus anything, right? That SaaS plus model drives up your valuation, builds your moat, makes you more defensible. Now, in summary, I know I moved very quickly on some of these slides. You were trying to take pictures. The next slide is a full summary of everything I just went over in one shot. If you came in late or you missed a picture, get your phones ready, because the next slide I'll put up for about 10 seconds. If you snap a picture, post it on LinkedIn, a little LinkedIn update, make sure you tag SaaStock and tag me. I'll send you this full slide deck tonight. I'm gonna go back to Clayton Ballsbridge, sit down in the auditorium area and just DM you guys back on LinkedIn. But again, take a picture of the next slide, tag me in SaaStock on LinkedIn, and then we'll wrap up. You guys ready? Phones ready? Here it is. Full summary. I had a blast teaching you using European examples that were standing right here on this stage not that many years ago. How to go from 1 to 10 with Zephr, cold email at Peakon, Calendly. We talked about 10 million plus with Hotjar, Phorest, and Glofox. And lastly, we wrapped up with the importance of founder brand, media, and code working together. Guys, my name is Nathan Latka with Founderpath. I'll be outside if you want to chat more. Thank you so much for having me. Take care, guys. See ya. Thank you.